All right, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Garret Nicodemus. I work in the Department of Chemical and Biological Engineering. I'm working on a project that's sponsored by a number of organizations, NSF, Shell, the Engineering Excellence Fund on the campus, and now through ISTEM as well for some future work, which is great, so thank you. And work with a couple of people of faculty, John Falconer, who's actually here today, and Andrew Scheiberg, a graduate from the department, and then Will Medlin and Jan DeGrazia. And these projects have to do with both creating an inventory of concept tests for the core chemical engineering courses. There's about 6 of them. And also on the other side of that, creating a number of screencasts, which I'll talk about here. So today's talk is just solely on screencasts. I do prefer that it's as much discussion and interruption as possible because we're really trying to solicit as much feedback on these. We really haven't gotten much other than from students, so it'd be nice to see what you guys think and maybe some of your ideas about it. So why care about them? We initially started putting screencasts online for anybody to access August 1st of last year. We had about 40 for the thermodynamics class, and since we've been adding them every week. As of yesterday, we have about 230 of these videos in those 6 classes online. We hope to get to about 500. What's interesting is that as of yesterday, we pretty much broke 18,000 videos played since that time. So in 8 months, we've hit 18,000.
Can I just back you up?
Yeah, by all means. What's a screencast?
Yeah, can you just define what it is that we're talking about?
I'd be happy to define what you're talking about.
As opposed to a YouTube video.
Yes, well, so it's kind of the same thing here.
Whoa, you've been talking to Ed.
If you get motion sickness, I tried a different program. It's called Prezi, but we can talk about that later. I'm tired of PowerPoint, I guess. But so, best way to explain a screencast is by using a screencast. I figure that's fair. So I'll play this in the background here. But a screencast is a short video that someone could write on a tablet PC or smartboard and narrate while they're doing so. So different from a YouTube video because YouTube, it could be anything from your neighbor jumping off their fence into a pool to a teacher talking for an hour, whereas this is really focused on 5 to 10 minute video of a very specific topic, maybe going over a part of a homework problem or a test problem and so forth. And so since you can narrate through it, the student has the option of pausing and playing it, going through it however they'd like. And they could access this online or download them so that they could play it on any device they have offline. So that's kind of what we.
But aside from its more lofty subject matter, it's not that different from a YouTube video.
No, I mean, a lot of people will also call them
It's not like
podcasts or
it's not
DCasts
interactive that I couldn't go in and start moving around.
You're right, you can't. So it's very similar to just a YouTube video, although YouTube nowadays has its specific connotation and says these are very academic and focused.
You keep your clothes on.
And we don't put them on YouTube.
And so they're created by the instructor, or the instructor has graduate students. He says, maybe you can make a screencast of homework problem number 3.
So that's totally up to you. Yeah, I mean, the way we've been making screencasts is the faculty have been making screencasts, or myself, or maybe another graduate student. We're actually, one of the faculty who's teaching the fluids course this semester is going to have all our students as a project make these. And try to teach your class through making screencasts, and then we could kind of filter through them, decide if we think they're good enough to put online for everybody else, or maybe modify them ourselves.
Is there a particular software that's associated with making a screencast?
Yeah, I could jump to that.
Well, no, I don't want to derail your talk.
But yeah, there is, and I'll get to that a little bit later.
So in fact, let me let you go back to what you did.
No, that's
now
fine.
I know what you're doing.
Well, I have a follow-on question to that.
Please.
Are any of these screencasts being taken from the actual course lecture, or are they being developed outside before?
So that's the big difference that we focus on with these. We consider them something we're making outside of class that might be a supplement extension of something that's being in class. So we don't necessarily film an instructor talking. We have our reasons for this. That way, at least this would be very similar to if the student was going to office hours. They're seeing how a professor would work through a problem, but they're doing it through online at their own ease at any time they want. MIT, Openware, and things like that, I put videos of the entire class. I've looked at 1 or 2, and I get to about 10, 12 minutes in, and I'm like, I don't have time for this, I don't care. It's just watching the class. So these are very specific. You can look them up. I'll show you how we organize these, but you could be like, okay, today, I'm having trouble with fugacity of gases. I want to look at that specific topic, and there's a 10-minute video focused on that. Sorry, I'm trying bouncing back and forth. So let me go back to the stats real quick. So 8 months, we've had 18,000 views. The orange line here is how many views we're averaging per week. Lately, this semester, we're averaging about 700-800 per week. We're hoping that, obviously, over time, as more people know about this, more departments across the states and other countries know about this, this will start growing.
How many students is that? How many classes?
So we have screencasts online for 6 classes, and I'll show you how much we have for each of the classes. We're close to finishing 3 of them, and we're hoping to start working on the other 3 as we start adding more and more to those. So part of the hurdle too is it's really easy, and I'll talk about this, to make a screencast. I mean, basically, faculty members just recording what they would do naturally. Then it takes a little bit of time, not much, but it takes a little bit of time to go in, maybe clean it up, edit it a little bit, throw in some annotations and other things that make it a little bit more useful, and then put them online. So we were sitting on a couple right now. But so what was interesting as we kind of started tracking these, this first semester, these first couple months, since this was roughly around August, this down period is winter break, so the end of December. Sorry, I'm pointing at both screens here. But these 3 very large spikes actually correlated really, really well with midterms and finals. So at least for the most part, we think that students are using these greatly as a study aid. We therefore polled the thermodynamics students after class and asked them about how they were watching these screencasts. And we saw this pie chart kind of represents how many screencasts those students watched. So everybody in the class out of 110 students said that they watched at least a video. Only 1 student said they only watched 1, and that was less than 5. Then you started having more of a fraction, watching 5 to 10, 10 to 20, and so forth. These are roughly about 33% each. So you have 30 students in the class of 110 that admitted to watching more than 30 of the videos that we have in the class.
Are these distinct videos that they're watching? You say 30 videos, or that they're repeating the same video over and over?
It's distinct videos. Yeah, that does not account for the fact that they might have repeated a video more than once. Okay. So this was promising. They seem to like us, right? I mean, 18,000 views in a couple months, and at least the students in one of our classes talking about how they liked it. So we have.
First thing, from now on, these are now outlawed. These guys, because you're going to cause somebody to have an epileptic seizure.
Well, okay.
Come to my next new technology talk. I'm using this without making.
There won't be much motion after that. I can tell you when I'm about to click if you want to close your eyes.
That would be good. Can you do that? That'd be
Sure.
good.
So I'll let you read some of these, but these are some of the quotes. It's pretty. These are a good representation of the many quotes that we collect from the students. Out of 110, only 1 or 2 of them weren't necessarily positive. They might have said, "Oh, I watched the video. I didn't really care. I didn't use many more of them." And that was only about 1 or 2 students. The rest of the 108 students had very positive comments about them. Can everybody read these, or should I read 1 or 2?
Read the best one.
Okay. Well, our favorite one. I mean, for a student to say anything positive about a class isn't necessarily totally common, but to have a student blatantly say screencasts are fantastic. I even watched some of them twice. It's like, hey, okay, that's kind of nice. It almost felt like we were doing them a favor by making them. I mean, it's helping them out, and they seem to like them. So, pretty positive remarks and pretty unanimous. And this is just one representation of the class. We've had classes in the past also use screencasts, not as many. For instance, Creative Tech, which is a freshman course for engineers, the professor had made some screencasts, and so there are about 350 students in the class. And over 95% of them said, yeah, they were very useful in helping me in the class. Same thing with material and energy balances, chemistry, and so forth. So very positive numbers showing that 95% plus in all of these classes regarding the topic said that these videos were very helpful to them. So again, something that we thought was very positive. Yes?
Did you structure these at all based on like the Khan Academy?
So I will mention that right now, I guess, since you brought it up. Also, Stephanie emailed me about it today. We came across the Khan Academy a little while ago, and for those of you that don't know about the Khan Academy, it's just KHANacademy.org. And the brief story of this guy was 6 years ago. He basically started tutoring his cousins in another state by recording help sessions just like this on his computer and posting them on YouTube. And he just kept doing this. And he's created a database of, I think, like 2,500 or 1,500 of these videos now, just by himself. Started being watched by more and more people. He's averaging a couple million people a week. And all of a sudden, Bill Gates and Google was like, hey, this seems to be important. Let's give you a couple $1 million. So he went from a nonprofit guy working in his closet to having a couple $1 million to hire a team of people to translate them and start figuring out programs to integrate them into classes. So now there's even more kind of national/global recognition of this and trying to incorporate them in classes. Other people, especially in Colorado, there's a group at Tucson chemistry teachers up at near UNC that have kind of coined this term, the flip classroom, where they make all these videos with them in them on like a little inset video, so that the students can see them as they're talking. And they're assigning these pre-class, having the students watch them and then come to class and spending the class time actually going through problems rather than talking about the topic, since they've already watched the video on it. And so they've called it the flip classroom, and they're creating this whole movement on it. But anyway, those are the two resources we've come across. We haven't necessarily tailored our videos to match theirs. Actually, I think our videos are a little bit better than Khan's, because he just talks and talks and talks and rambles. So and he does no editing.
And periodically wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's one guy talking about a lot of topics. So at least, I mean, so far of all the videos we have, I think we've had 5 or 6 people help contribute to making these videos. So, assuming experts in the field. So a couple things in terms of how students could use these. As I mentioned, they could be played online if they have access to the internet, or they could download them. Now that iTunes launched about 3 weeks ago, or iTunes U launched for our campus 3 weeks ago, they've been put on there. The nice thing about that, if you're not familiar with it, is you could just subscribe to a class. All the videos will download to your computer or iPod, and then you can watch them whenever you want. So you can play them offline, which is nice. And a big positive is students could do this on their own time and at their own pace. So you can start playing it, you can pause it, maybe you get excited about doing the problem yourself, hopefully. We've actually tried to put in some annotations that suggest to pause it and try to set up the solution before watching it. Then the student could watch it, and if something doesn't click the first time, they could easily rewind, come back to it, and play it again. So something that we think is pretty advantageous for that.
What's the process of putting things on the Colorado
iTunes U? So there's a great assistant that works for the director of doing that, who's contacted us. Actually, their email, you can email them. It's just iTunesucu, colorado.edu, I think. I could email it to you, but they basically just went to our site, downloaded all the videos, and organized it how we wanted, and we did very little to nothing to help with that. So,
I mean, there is some copyright issues that the university had to go through about who owns it. Ultimately, I don't know how the university resolved it, but initially we weren't going to retain copyright over our own materials. The stuff was put up there, so I'm not sure how it was resolved. I hope otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, that hasn't been an issue that we've necessarily been too concerned about, but yeah, I don't know.
Maybe we should get whoever is doing that to come and give us a little chat.
Great.
Yeah, I can send all that to you. I have it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Another thing that's been positive that we've also noticed is that, a student might watch this for the first exam because it's relevant for that exam, and then all of a sudden, as the final starts coming up, they might be, oh yeah, this video, I remember this, let me watch it again, it'll help me refresh on that topic. Maybe this time, instead of just playing it and watching it, I'll actually approach the problem first, make sure I understand it. So they're using it to review for tests for later on. Nice thing too is, especially in engineering, at the end of all this, you got to take a big exam if you want to go into industry and have what we call the FE exam, Fundamentals of Engineering, taken. And so you might have done something your sophomore year, not really remembered it too well, and the videos are online, you can go back to it and look it up. So it has a long-lasting benefit for the students. In terms of what these screencasts can be, as you mentioned earlier, how we're structuring them, first off, it could be like a little mini lecture. We could introduce a topic or talk more about a topic that might have been mentioned in class, clear up some things that maybe after class didn't seem to be too clear. But again, just spending 5 to 10 minutes really focusing on that, maybe give a different perspective. So it could be an introduction to a topic. We might go over a homework or test problem, very short problem, again, since we're shooting for a specific time for these videos. And the reason for that is students have commented that if the videos get too long, they just get scared away from watching them. And so the shorter, the more likely we're going to have their attention throughout it. And so we'll go over homework or test problems that they might see. Might cover a conceptual problem that was done in class. Maybe you didn't have enough time to cover that too much in depth, get everybody in the class to understand. As a student, if you feel like you're one of the only students that's not really grasping it, you don't want to be that person necessarily that's interrupting class, this provides you an outlet to kind of go after class and say, okay, this is online, I can look it up, and if you still don't understand, then approach a professor or something in office hours. Especially in engineering classes, a lot of software, different software types that you go through the courses. And so providing a short tutorial on how to use aspects of that program, they get to see it and kind of track how you're using it. So that's kind of beneficial. And then one point that I didn't mention earlier is maybe making them specific for an exam. And one thing that John did last semester in thermodynamics was make 5 videos specifically going over past year exam problems, whether conceptual or a worked out kind of problem. What was really interesting is that out of 110 students, each of those 5 videos was watched over 100 times. Whether we know a student watched them more than once, we can't really figure that out without asking all the students. But a good fraction, I mean, over 100 watches of each of those 5 videos. John didn't actually hold a final review session for his class, and not a single student out of the 110 commented or complained about that. Also, interestingly, was that the average scores on that final were the highest he's ever had. Whether there's a good correlation between them being there as a resource and actually being more prepared for the exam or not, it's something we would be interested to see how we would figure that out. But it was very promising to see that. And from a teaching perspective, the fact that you could make a couple videos, put them online, they could always be there, and not have to hold lengthy review sessions for 80, 90 students a night or two before the exam is kind of a positive attribute. In terms of for teachers, it really promotes spending more time in class doing active teaching methods. If you don't have to spend class time to go over worked out example problems, whereas you could just put them on a video and put them online, the students get to spend more time in class actively discussing questions, conceptual problems, some of the clicker questions we're working on, and then they won't complain that they're not seeing worked out homework problems because they're online that they can look on at their own time. So it frees that time up to use for more active teaching. In terms of how you could use them so far that we've thought up, as I mentioned, you could assign them as pre-lecture assignments, kind of have the students, if it's a topic or maybe a simple problem, they could watch these ahead of class, and you could spend the class time maybe doing something more advanced, or discussion groups on certain problems related to that material. If students are missing classes, then you could say, watch these 3 videos, these should cover the topics we went over in class. So they're there, they're not bugging you, it's something that they could go to. Which is kind of similar to what we were calling referrals. So if a student's asking you a specific question, maybe you don't have time, you can say, hey, go watch this video first. If you still have questions, come back and see me. So hopefully some of these videos take that out of the picture. And at the same time, you could start reducing the amount of students that might be coming to your office hours or TA's office hours because they have the materials online and they could look at them whenever they want on their own time and their own pace. Yeah, go ahead.
Are you having any of the professors who are involved with this collect common questions that they're getting during office hours on for specific sections of a course, and then using those to see these replacements for lecture hour video?
I mean, we haven't yet. I think that's a great idea to solicit. I mean, for the most part, it's just been, we know topics that are tricky for students. We know problems that students have kind of stumbled on a couple times, so we kind of aim. That was our initial efforts. Lately, what we've done, and I'll show you later, is we organize all our videos according to some of the more popular textbooks. So as we've gotten more and more videos online, we can say, hey, we don't have something for this area, let's try to make a video for this. But in an aspect of blatantly asking students or teachers, do you know specific things, we do it offhand a little bit. I know when I was teaching, and still some of the people I know who teach the topic, I might say, any ones we should make up right now that students are having trouble with. So in that regard, we've solicited a couple students at times, but for the most part, we haven't gotten too much input on that.
Do they also go through is there a tutoring session for students? I mean, what other areas would you be able to collect information about what students would want in the videos as well?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I couldn't hear.
So he's asking just what other venues are there for students to kind of solicit ideas to us in terms of making the videos? I mean, right now we have all our videos on 2 different sites, and I'll show you that here in a second. And so on the sites, we try to make it pretty clear that if they have suggestions or ideas, they can email us. A lot of the students obviously know John or Janet or Will and can say, hey, as these are becoming more useful and the students are liking them, they can say, can we have a screencast on this? So that helps too. But in terms of blatantly trying to grab a bunch of students and say, okay, we're going to talk about topics we want.
Yeah, I was asking, but you ended up answering the question.
Oh, okay.